start. We can start and colleagues will connect. Good afternoon, everyone, and especially our distinguished speakers, Karin, Natalia, and our keynote speaker, Elena from the Embassy of Netherlands in the Republic of Moldova. Thank you for everybody to join today's session. We will have this session in English. Unfortunately with no translation, but really hope that it's not a problem. On today's session, we'll discuss on good practices for collaboration between civil society and institutions on the VPS agenda and gender equality. For those who don't know me, I'm Elena Mrzak, director of the organizer of this event, Platform for Security and Defense Initiatives. I will moderate today the discussions, and today's event is a continuation of the dialogue we began on the September Fest, or even before this, when the Embassy of Netherlands organized a workshop inviting Karin and Natalia and other experts from Netherlands to present the experience of Netherlands in the implementation of the VPS agenda. But today we'll have a sharp focus on the lesson learned and practical cooperation models. We kindly ask Karin and Natalia to share their practical and lessons learned and how they did this in Ukraine and in Netherlands. Just very shortly about the context, because we are meeting just weeks after the parliamentary elections in the Republic of Moldova, and it was a real democratic exercise that once again tested our collective resilience. And alongside the vote, we witnessed intensifying disinformation campaigns, including gender-based disinformation and different narrative on this regard, as well as other forms of external interference, as vote buying, hybrid attacks. And this is not happening in isolations. And to unfold this backdrop of this democratic backsliding, and again, the renewed contestation of gender equality and quite weakened independent media environment. In this context, civil society organizations, together with the security law institutions, played a very important role in safeguarding these democratic processes, documenting different violations, supporting citizens in their right to informed choices. Our purpose today is very concrete. First of all, this is a large objective to strengthen the capacity of civil society to counter these threats, to respond and to help in this regard the government to respond to these hybrid threats. And by exchanging these good practices and reinforcing the networks between Moldovan civil society organization, international partners that can be activated quickly when disinformation spikes, especially in that situation when this aims to silence women leaders, advocates, and communities. To guide us in this, we have the privilege to have two practitioners who turn strategies into results. Karin, sorry to pronounce, Karin de Honge? Honge? No?
Karin de Jonge?
De Honge. NEP 1325 project lead Women Dutch Gender Platform, who will share lessons learned and best practices from VPS implementation and institutional cooperation. And Ms. Natalia Karbowska, Director of Strategic Development at the Ukraine Women's Fund, who will speak about moving from plans to practice through community-driven 1325, effective partnership, and data-informed learning. But before giving the floor to these wonderful experts, I would like to kindly ask Elena Christian, Senior Rule of Law Officer, Embassy of Kingdom of Netherlands in the Republic of Moldova, to address us a salute, let's say. In this, I will use this opportunity to thank once again the Embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands for their interest and continuous support to promote women, peace and security agenda in the Republic of Moldova. Elena, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. Good afternoon, everyone. On the behalf of the Dutch Embassy, I am very pleased to welcome you at this online session on good practices for collaboration among civil society and institutions in the implementation of Agenda. As Elena already mentioned, today's event is a continuation of the discussions that we had on 1st of September, mainly discussions focused on disinformation, a session very important before election that we already had. And as we already saw, we are very happy with the results that we had after elections. So today we will focus on the importance of having a good coordination and collaboration between civil society and institutions in promoting and advocating for agenda, women, peace and security, and also in the implementation of the national plan. These are not general commitments. These are principles that are meant to strengthen security, democracy, and in general the well-being of the society. We are very pleased to have you, Natalia, and Karen as speakers today. Thank you for accepting this invitation. We also want to thank to our partners, Pacea, for making this initiative, the first one and this one, possible. And yes, this session will be an opportunity to learn from the experience of Netherlands and Ukraine, and to see what experience and lessons learned can be taken by Moldova and how it will better fit our context. As an embassy, we are very happy to support these kind of initiatives, and we hope that it will bring a bridge between Netherlands, Ukraine, and Moldova. And we, of course, will build new ideas, new initiatives to empower women, peace, security in the country and in the region. I wish you a productive discussion. I look forward for new ideas and new discussions. Thank you,
Yes.
and yeah, we can start.
Thank you very much, Elena. Absolutely. I forgot to mention that is one of the objectives is to understand how civil society in other countries operates, and yes, as the medium and long-term objective is to understand how could we cooperate together, maybe to apply for the regional projects, taking the opportunity of Netherlands and Ukrainian experience in applying, and at least to help us to navigate in this regional and international environment. So, Karen, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Elena. Let me start by sharing PowerPoint so that I've got a bit of structure. Let me see. Yeah, you can see it?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Welcome everybody. My name is Karin de Jonge. I work for the Dutch organization Women Equals Men. It's the Dutch platform for women equality and gender equality and women rights. And in the Netherlands, we are a member-based NGO. And in the Netherlands, we are also the coordinator of the National Action Plan 1325, together with our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In the Netherlands, we have quite a long history of collaboration between government and civil society on the Women, Peace and Security agenda. Since 2008, when we drafted our first National Action Plan, we have been doing that together. So that means that over time, we did build up some knowledge about each other because we're very different. Civil society and ministries are quite different animals. And we built up a culture of dialogue and exchange. and currently we're implementing our 4th National Action Plan. So in our view, this collaboration makes best use of each other's complementary skills, expertise and experience, and the levels of influence of government and civil society are very different. So we consider this as an important collaboration, and it adds value. About the setup of our NAP, and especially about the setup of what we call our NAP community, I'd like to say a few things. Our National Action Plan, NAP, as we abbreviate it, you will not find an action or an activity. We actually see our NAP as a strategic framework. It's like an umbrella under which both government and civil society can work together. And another important feature of the NAP is that we have a so-called NAP community. What does that mean? In the Netherlands, ministries and organizations can sign up to the NAP. In other words, if you feel that you can contribute to the outcomes of the NAP, you can sign up, you become a signatory, and the collection of signatories is what we call the NAP community. At the moment, these are 4 ministries and 67 civil society organizations. We call them NAP signatories. That number is not a fixed number. In the course of the implementation, some organizations join us, others leave us because organizations may shift a thematic focus and then they do no longer work on women, peace and security, and then they leave as a signatory. And it's also a very diverse community. In the Netherlands, it consists of course, the ministries, but also large relief and development organizations, refugee-led organizations, women's rights organizations, peace-building organizations, big and small, a very large variety. Now, the NAP community is, in fact, we expand it because every signatory also works with local partners. So if organization X is working in Sudan, it may work with 10 local partners. And then in our view, also those 10 local partners are part of our NAP 1325 community. So that is how we define our community, if you like. And every NAP signatory works in its own way on the outcomes of the NAP. So you can work individually, you can work in a partnership, you can work on improving policy, you can work as a donor. As long as in your own remit you work towards the outcome of the NAP, you are considered part of the community. Let's see if that is, yeah. I would like to discuss 3 stages: the NAP development, NAP implementation, and monitoring and evaluation. And every stage, how we work with our civil society and government collaborate. So first, the development process. An important part of developing our NAP 4 was that we held a series of thematic consultations, 15 in total, and each of them discussed what we considered critical issues. So, for example, the issue of gender focus in humanitarian aid, or how can we improve a gender lens in the security sector, or how can we improve the rights of women in the asylum procedures in the Netherlands. For each of these sessions, we invited the organizations working on that particular theme, the ministries that were relevant to that particular theme, and external thematic experts. We had critical discussions, and then after all these consultations, we wrote up a document which basically for each theme laid out what were the key challenges that were identified, what were the existing best practices that we knew of, and what are the recommendations on how to engage on that theme in a future NAP. And this document provided sort of the base for the information base on which we based NAP 4. So that was a way of engaging both government and civil society, but we also set up a so-called dedicated readers group from among this whole community, about 5 or 6 people who were prepared to critically look with us on different drafts of the NAP. And we included especially critical people. And we also set up a group that was taken from the community with monitoring and evaluation experts to set up a realistic, workable monitoring and evaluation framework. So the first draft was read by the readers group. The second and last drafts of the NAP was actually submitted to the whole community, because it was important that everybody felt that it was also their plan and that they had an input in it, and that is important for the process of co-ownership. And going back to the initial drafting of the NAP, the strategic planning, or deciding what is it that we're going to focus on, this was done by the NAP coordinator, so by Women Equals Men and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We made the initial decisions on what we thought are the outcomes we want to work on. And that was a process that took quite a bit of time, but we felt it was very important to take that time, because, as I said in the beginning, our NAP is a strategic framework under which both government and civil society work. So we needed to take the time to make sure that we were, from both sides, we were confident that the outcomes that we had defined were what we wanted to work on both sides, because that is then a genuine basis for a strategic partnership. And then some words on governance and financing. We set up, next to the NAP coordinators I just mentioned, we set up an oversight board. So on another level, on a more strategic level, we have an oversight board, including the 4 ministries, a number of CSOs, and they discuss once in 2-3 months they oversee at a strategic level what is required, if there are any gaps, if we need to take certain decisions, or if it is time to get high-level buy-in from political leaders. More the high-over issues are dealt with by the oversight board. The role of the NAP coordinators is sort of day-to-day management. We deal with issues that come up, but most importantly, Women Equals Men and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our main role is to make sure that we facilitate learning and exchange, and I'll come back to that when we talk about implementation. And finally, a word about the financing. The NAP 1325 in the Netherlands is not a funding instrument. If you sign up to the NAP, you have to look after your own funding. Everybody has to raise their own funding. So whether that is a large grant or more grants that you manage to get from the EU or whatever donors, or it is a small grant that you get from a local municipality to implement a small project with refugees, we don't mind. Everybody's contribution is equally valued, but you need to raise the money yourself. And on top and next to that, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs makes funding available for women, peace and security, to which also all the organizations can apply, but it's not guaranteed that if you are a signatory that you will get money. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs funding mechanism is, however, considerable, and that means that we are sure that there is considerable budget available to implement what we have stated in the NAP. And that is quite a good thing to have. Then on the implementation of the NAP, how do we work together? As I said, the NAP signatories are not a coherent group. It's a bunch of big, small, all kind of organizations. So everybody works in their own way. they do not have a predetermined task. Everybody can do their own thing. So as a CSO signatory, you're free to decide on which outcome you want to work on. More than one is also possible. However, for the government, for the ministries, it is obligatory to report every 2 years on all the outcomes of the NAP, because the government has signed up to the UN Resolution 1325 and thereby has an obligation to be accountable to that. That means that when it comes to monitoring and evaluation, there's also different responsibilities. Now, for the NAP coordinators, our main role is that we cannot steer this group. This is a loose group of all kinds of different entities. But what we can do is we invest in learning and exchange, so that all the implementers of the NAP become over the years become better in implementing. And what we do is we wherever we can, we facilitate exchange via regular updates in which we share reflections of events or new tools or an agenda with upcoming events, whatever. We organize thematic sessions whereby organizations working on a particular theme, whether that is conflict-related sexual violence or whether that is women, peace and security and disability. It could be any theme, but we organize thematic sessions where organizations who are interested can join. And we also have country-based working groups. So organizations in our constituency who work in Sudan can meet each other and discuss the work they do in Sudan. So also that on that level you can exchange a very practical experience, for example. And then lastly, on monitoring, evaluation and learning. We have, our NAP has an indicator framework, which is basically stating for every outcome of our NAP a number of indicators, and it's meant for the government, so that the government has a sort of, has as a list of indicators, and they know which ministry has to report against which indicator. And very importantly, we have developed completely different reporting tracks for government and civil society. As I mentioned before, the government is bound by the UN Resolution 1325, so they are also obliged to report to their parliament about progress. Initially, this was annually, but after a year, they decided that biannually is more feasible, more workable. So now every 2 years, the combination of the 4 ministries report progress on each of the outcomes of our NAP to Parliament in a joint report. For civil society, it's different. We cannot force civil society to report on NAP 1325 because they have never signed a UN resolution and they are not institutionally obliged to report to us. We are not a donor, so we have no carrots and sticks. So we have agreed with our civil society members that for them, what we like is to provide us with information that can help, again, mutual learning and exchange, and can help us all to learn better how to do things, to be inspired by others. So what we have said is to all of them, please give us something every year that you have already developed for communication purposes, for your donor or whatever, and give us a copy. So don't do anything specially for us, but share with us what you've made for others. So, for example, if you have made a podcast for your own website and it is related to your work on outcome 1 of the NAP, please share it with us. Or if you have newsletters, stories of change, video clips, a policy paper that relates to your work on one or more of the outcomes, please share it with us. And then we put it all on a website that we have, a NAP 3025 website, and that website includes a database. And there all these products are brought together. And the idea is that everybody can scroll through all these products and learn from it, use it for their own purpose, whenever they need, and you can scroll per country, per outcome, or per organization, and then you can, make use of other organizations' experience, tools, guidelines, or whatever. I would like to leave it here for now. If there are any questions, of course, happy to answer afterwards.
Thank you, Karen, very much. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, but we know that Natalia has a problem with power bank, and there is a possibility that somehow she could disconnect. So we will switch to Natalia, and after this come back to questions. And please, participants, if you don't want to address the question in English, please leave it in the chat in Romanian and we can translate. Or after this, prepare the questions and address this directly. Natalia, please, the floor is yours.
Mulțumesc. Thank you. Thank you, Elena. Good afternoon. I just arrived actually from Moldova. I was in Chișinău yesterday, so I feel like I'm still in between Chișinău and Kyiv. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you today. And I'm especially grateful that I am speaking to you together with Karin, because we at the Ukrainian Women's Fund, we actually learned a lot from Women Equals Men, and the way how our work on NAP 1325 localization is organized now is actually very much because of their lessons that we learned from Women Equal Men. So let me say briefly about why my organization, Ukrainian Women's Fund, is working on localization of the National Action Plan on 1325. We are engaged in this work since 2018. The main reason is that our National Action Plan does not yet look like their Dutch one. It is not a framework. It is very much the activities. So there are oblasts, so there is a national action plan, and of course, in order to implement it, our regions, our oblasts have to make their own regional action plan. So what was happening before was that they were just, receiving this list of activities, this table, and they were copy pasting basically activities and just changing the names of the regions. And often these activities were really far from the reality in the region. So therefore, we decided to launch the initiative that will be about making these oblast regional action plans more realistic and more effective on the ground. We started back in 2018 with 5 regions and 5 people, 1 person per each region. Now this system, this methodology that we developed through this initiative, it works all over the country. We have so-called 1325 coalitions in every region, in every oblast of Ukraine. There are 25 of them now. The members are more than 1,000 civil society organizations representatives, also representatives of the local governments and national government, security and defense sectors. They are among those who are now the active members of the coalitions. Our oblast plans are different now. Absolutely, I can say this for sure, that they are different from how they looked back in 2018 and 19. And we have the system already. It's not ideal, of course. I think there is nothing ideal in the world, right? But it is a very effective one. So I will be glad to share today a few components that, in my opinion, are important in order to for the system of NAP 1325 localization to work effectively. So first and very important thing is partnership. Partnerships between their civil society organizations, local governments and national government, security and defense sector, academia, mass media, and others who care, who are interested in promoting women, peace and security agenda. So how we work, how we build these partnerships in the regions is through the so-called Certain 25 coalitions. So the coalitions are the platforms to support cooperation, the platforms to between the government and civil society, between different stakeholders, the platforms to the places actually to analyze the current situation, suggest the changes, and advocate for them. So our experience with Certain 25 coalitions really proves that this model is really effective, not only for the Certain 25 NAP localization, but also for the other topics. Because the members are actually envisioning them as a place where different stakeholders can jointly plan and implement the solutions. And I can give a very brief example. We are now developing the new national action plan, and in the regions, every region, every oblast had their strategic planning sessions before bringing the ideas to the national level. So I think this is perfect, and this was done through the coalitions. I think this is perfect example of localization. Of course, to make these platforms work, it is very important to have political will from the government. This is of course not the same everywhere, not the same in every region. It depends very much on the environment, on the history of cooperation of government with civil society. But in our experience, successful examples work. So if there are examples of how the decision makers, people from the government, are working effectively with civil society organizations, and if there is a way to share this experience, I think it's really useful. It is also very important to have trust, mostly from the civil society organizations to cooperation with the government, because we sometimes hear that civil society organizations prefer not to not to work for the government, or not to be associated with the government. So this question of trust is also something that needs to be discussed while organizations are joining the coalitions. And of course, very important is to see the benefits of cooperation. In our experience, the benefits are clear. First of all, such cooperation through the coalitions basically is the way to bring the voices of people who are the beneficiaries of the policies, bring their voices to people who are making policies. Also, this is the way to advocate together. And very importantly, in our case, the coalitions are bringing additional funding for the implementation of the National Action Plan on Certain 25. And I will talk a little about this a little bit later. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about is our experience on how we work with communities. Because while we do believe that any policy is effective only if it works on the local level where real people live. Our National Action Plan, because it is at the moment, it is the table with activities. It is built on the contribution from the local level and activities in the regions, from big cities to small villages. I was thinking how to share our experience on working with the regions, with communities, and I decided that probably the good thing would be to start from the thing that didn't work. So we initially came to communities with their trainings on UN Security Council Resolution 235 and other, sister resolutions, other international instruments. We were thinking that, if we come to villages and talk to people that, their situations, their lives are really important, even from the global kind of perspective, they will be more supportive and they will be more eager for partnership and for, developing their own action plans on Certain 25. And I must confess that these were difficult trainings. People appreciated that we talked to them about such important documents, but many of them were missing the link between the documents and their lives in their communities. So we changed the approach and started from gender safety audits. We are doing the gender safety audits now in many communities. At the moment, more than 57 communities in Ukraine participated in this initiative, and we are implementing it together with our partners, Foundation for Public Health. So what the methodology includes is that basically we come to the communities and train people on how to identify security risks for women. Then they form the little groups together with the government, with the village councils, with the local government, and these groups analyze the situation in the village. They basically go from street to street, from house to house, and write a report on what risks they see for women in the community. And then based on this analysis, they jointly develop the action plan. What should be changed, in their opinion? And we, as the Ukrainian Women's Fund, we partially support the implementation of the plan with the grants. We have the small grants program to support this initiative. And I must tell you, it works super well. There is actually a list of communities who are waiting, who are on the waiting list now to be trained on this methodology and to implement it in their communities, because this is the way for people to see in real life what are the challenges, what are needs. And often they are going through the same streets every day and they don't even see that, there are risks for women. For example, that there is no electricity on the pedestrian crossing at the places near the kindergarten, for example, or there are places which are not clean, and there are a lot of dust and trees and everything near the educational institution for girls, and in the evening, and again, no electricity, so in the evening they have to go through these unsecure places and there are risks of violence there. People simply, they don't recognize this. So after these conversations about gender safety, what did the situation change? So this is our lesson, and this is the recommendation from our side, that if we want to really effectively work in the communities, we should start from the very practical things like gender safety audits. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about monitoring, our experience with monitoring and evaluation and mutual learning. So at the moment in Ukraine, we use two systems: government monitoring, which is mostly output level indicators, collecting the data and numbers, and civil society organizations monitoring, which is mostly done by Certain 25 coalitions. And we discussed that having such a dual system is not, well, it is important for the government to collect indicators, to collect data, of course. Civil society organizations are doing this as well, but the two documents do not have much possibilities to match and to be used together for strategic thinking and for developing, for analysis and developing something new out of this. So last year, together with the government, we started work on a combined system. We piloted it last year. So the system basically includes a joint questionnaires that we developed jointly with the government, with the Office of the Government Commissioner on Gender Equality Policy, who has a monitoring role on a national action plan. Certain 25, basically, she is monitoring the implementation of the plan. So we develop a joint questionnaires for government and for civil society organizations. Of course, there is the political support from the Office of the Government Commissioner. There are letters to the oblast administrations, to people responsible for the National Action Plan, so that they pay attention to these indicators and they are basically obliged to follow them. And we are doing a lot of quality data collection within this monitoring. We are doing, our partners in the regions, coalitions are doing interviews, focus groups, discussions with beneficiaries and stakeholders. We then develop a joint report on the implementation of the plan in the oblast and present it at the draft. First the draft to stakeholders, then again go back and introduce changes after the conversations about the draft, and the final report are presented at the oblast level and also at the national level. We find this. We only did this once last year with the National Action Plan implementation in 2024, but we are definitely going to repeat this system this year, because it showed, even 1 year, during the 1 year it showed the results. For example, we realized that in Ukraine, 68% of the funding for the National Action Plan 1325 comes from civil society organizations. 68%, almost 70%. We never even, before we did this joint analysis, we never even thought about this. And this is a very important argument for us now, for the government, because it shows how important is civil society in the implementation of the National Action Plan. And therefore, we should play even a bigger role in the development of the plan, because, if we develop it together, then the implementation will be more effective. We also saw, as a result of this monitoring, that there are some regions where activities are, some activities of the Oblast Action Plans are implemented only by civil society organizations, without the government. But on the other side, they are not included in coordination structures with the government. And this is also something that needs to change. So their analysis from monitoring is actually a very good resource for us for advocacy, for further advocacy. It certainly informs the new initiatives. And the final comment that I wanted to make, and this is also based on my experience of the past few days in Moldova, and also based on my experience of working for many years in Ukraine, especially on 1325 and Women, Peace and Security agenda. Through our work, we understood that everything around us is women, peace and security. And Yelena, you spoke at the beginning about hybrid threats. Yeah. This is also women, peace and security. Overall, gender equality is about national security. It's about security. So it is critically important for us to raise as much awareness as possible about the importance of the National Action Plan 1325, Resolution 1325. It is important to keep analyzing the risks that women are facing in terms of security and promote changes. I think this is it from my side. Again, like Karin, will be glad to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalia, indeed, and thank you very much for highlighting. We keep explaining and advocating for this main idea that women, peace, security is part of the national security. It's not a parallel process, it's not a parallel program, and even more, it's not of some civil society organization dream to have this kind of NAP or efficient implementing. Thank you very much to Karin and Natalia, bringing such, I would say, very practical and really lesson learned from your side. We are from Moldova civil society in this regard, in VPS, promoting and implementing. We are quite young in this regard. We just created our group of initiative, trying to build our capacity, understand our role, and your examples once again showed the role of the civil society in the implementing of the 1025 NEP. We have a question here in the chat already, but please, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Before we go to, yes, we have two questions in chat. Okay, let us address these questions, and after this I already prepared many questions from my side as well, but let us, we will start with Natalia Albu for both speakers. If you want, I can read, but if you want, you can read in the chat as well. International partnership and external support are indeed very valuable for advancing WPS agenda. However, in some cases, NEP implementers tend to rely too heavily on external assistance, suggesting that self-management the program is not feasible. What recommendations would you offer for helping governments move beyond this comfort zone and strengthen national ownership and responsibility in implementation? Karen, if you would like to start.
Yeah, I could start that. I am not sure yes, okay. One thing I could mention here is that it's true. NGOs, per definition, are relying on funding from donors, and that is a weakness by times. We do, however, also have in our constituency quite a number of volunteering organizations, especially refugee-led organizations are often working with volunteers, but also some of the smaller women rights organizations are working with volunteers. So also in the Netherlands, part of the implementation is done by volunteers. Whether that, in our case, that is actually a bit of a tension, because it means that, yeah, there is people are eyeing each other. Some of them have budgets and money and they can pay their staff. Others are working as volunteers. As a coordinator, we're trying to treat everybody equal and trying to accommodate the fact that, for example, volunteer organizations prefer to meet in the weekends or in the evenings, whereas people whose work it is, they like to meet during office hours. We also have established, but again, then we're talking about outside funding, but we have established a fund with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to compensate volunteer organizations to some extent for the travel costs when they participate in meetings, because we felt it was so unfair that, you know, if half of the constituency is working on paid jobs and the others are working as volunteers, and if you are talking about meaningful contribution from everybody, then you need to somehow see if you can bridge that division. So we have a fund for the smaller organizations so that they can compensate for travel costs and hours worked. But yes, I agree. We all rely on the external assistance in the end. It's, I think, a different situation from Ukraine. When you work on your own country, again, it's different. When, in our case, we work either in conflict-affected areas or we work with refugees. But our own country is yet to be established, and it's getting more and more urgent in the current situation. But we haven't yet addressed the security, safety and security of our own country and incorporated that in our NAP. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that is some things I could mention about, you know, where the support is coming from.
We really hope to reach this level when we will have many volunteers ready to involve and to use their free time to promote and to implement Women, Peace and Security agenda. So we need to tend to this. And as well, sorry.
No. I just wanted to somehow say that I also wanted to respond to this question, if you allow me, okay? So yeah, I can share our experience, and Well, indeed, this is true that in Ukraine there are so many other priorities, as our government say, and there is not much funding in the government budget especially for a certain 25 plan. But here is where again the whole idea of localization works. We are advocating for the funding from local budgets, and we are quite successful in this. Even in the regions which are quite far from the contact line. For example, we have a super experienced, successful one in Securitatea, where local coalition 1325 advocated for funding. This was the first oblast in Ukraine which actually approved funding in the oblast budget for the Oblast Action Plan 1325. What helped us in this is their big informational campaign that coalition organized, and also the composition of the coalition. From the very beginning, they started to invite deputies of the local councils, of the Oblast Council, to join the coalition, women deputies who understand and who care. So they're the ones who actually suggested the idea of advocacy of funding from the Oblast budget and who helped it work. Of course, it's a small money. I mean, compared to what we receive from international partners for the implementation of the plan. But still, this is very political money. And they always say, this coalition, that we need to have at least something. We need to secure the line in the Oblast budget for Oblast Action Plan 1325, and then we have much more possibilities to advocate for the increased funding. So this is our experience.
Thank you very much. These are brilliant examples for us, and we really would like to have in-depth discussions on how you manage to do this, because now Moldova is, let's say, in the way of struggling how to localize this agenda and make people understand what it's about and why it matters. And in your case, having a war and having a lot of expenses, and meantime to invest, doesn't matter how much time, money, energy in this is, I think it's very good indicator. We don't have so much time, but I see that in the chat we already have some questions, and the one was for Natalia regarding the sexual violence. Natalia, if it's easier for you to read the question, this is about protecting women and girls during armed conflicts, and Livia is interested in what actions are being taken in this regard in Ukraine, given that the country is at war, and perhaps there are any studies on this subject. Please.
Yeah, sure. Well, being cognizant of time, I'll answer briefly that, well, indeed, conflict-related sexual violence or war-related sexual violence is the we all, civil society and the government, we understand the importance of this new challenge for Ukraine. What we are doing, well, first of all, it is included, the section about conflict-related sexual violence is included in the new National Action Plan on 1325. There are also several initiatives that Ukrainian government and civil society organizations are implementing to, well, first to respond to the cases of conflict-related sexual violence, also to support the survivors, and very importantly, to keep Russia accountable for this. So there are several initiatives happening both in Ukraine at the international level, and for the in order to save the time, I'll not describe them in detail now, but I'll be happy to get in touch with Livia and share the documents separately after this call, and share the documents, and also maybe if you're interested, I sent you the contacts of my colleagues who are working on this issue on a daily basis.
Thank you very much, Natalia. And we have two other questions. This is regarding, we can read in the chat from Anastasia Karaush. As a young woman from Moldova who believes in the power of equality and leadership, I would like to ask, how can women not only participate in changing the system, but truly reshape it to make our societies more just, inclusive, and future-oriented? This is one question. And another question is from Yulia. How can young people and digital activism contribute to strengthening cooperation between institutions and civil society on VPS and gender equality agenda? And can you share some inspiring examples of lessons learned from your work that demonstrate how partnership between government and civil society can advance gender equality and women's participation in peace building? If you can shortly address these two questions, Karin and Natalia.
Now, let me start with the last question about some inspiring examples on collaboration between government and civil society. One of the things that has happened over the last few years when we implemented our NAP 1325 is that now our Ministry of Defense, whenever they assign people to go on a peacekeeping mission, whether that is in Iraq or Bosnia-Herzegovina or Chad or whatever country, they were always required already to make a gender analysis of the area where they were going to. And they were also already, that was already institutionalized, provide gender training for the military who would be going out on this peacekeeping operation. However, what is new is that they have learned that civil society organizations in those countries, i.e. the local partners of our NAP signatories, have very good gender analysis about the situation locally. And of course, a Ministry of Defense has its own intelligence sources, etc. But they realize that there is so much knowledge and experience with local organizations. And when it comes to gender analysis, they will now always ask, basically they ask Women Equals Men to look for local partners in an area where they're going to move a new peacekeeping operation to a bunch of military is going there. They always ask if they can connect with local women's rights organization or local development organization with a good gender analysis. And that has really improved their analysis, and it has therefore improved their, what do we call it, the training that prior to pre-deployment training, I should call it. Pre-deployment training has improved because they have much better knowledge, analysis, and tools to address the gender situation in a new country. And that is new because the Ministry of Defense would not naturally go to local women rights organization in a particular area and connect about gender analysis. It's such different entities. But through the umbrella of the NAP, that those communication lines have become shorter and it's easier to get in touch. And it has benefited both because the women organizations locally also benefit from better implementation by a peacekeeping operation in a particular country, for example.
Thank you.
Natalia, I'll give the floor to you for an answer to another question.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Karin. Well, I will ask Anastasia a question about how young women can change the system. So I will give you, I do believe in the power of women to change the systems themselves, to shape them, to build the new ones. And for me, the best way to do this is from moving from activism to decision making. And I have an example of actually our staff member. Her name is Irina. She joined as an assistant several years ago, and then she became so much, engaged in the movement that she said that she wants to make decisions as a young woman. So, and she's not from Kyiv, she's originally, she's from a small town in Western Ukraine. So she decided that she will, with all the new experience with all new experience, skills, and knowledge that she got here in Kyiv and at the Ukrainian Women's Fund, she decided that she will go back to her community and start applying all these new things in her community. And a year after, she became a local deputy. So now she is reshaping the agenda in her little community. I think this is the perfect example of, how young women, she is 28 or 29.
Thank you. Interesting.
So this is, how young women, could definitely, go through the movement, could go to political participation and political leadership. So I just wish that there are more women like our Irina and like you, Anastasia. I'm sure that you also, one day you will become, you will sit at the tables where decisions are made. And the second question that I wanted to ask about the digital activism. This is, well, for me, the power of young people being engaged in digital activism is really untapped at the moment. We should, as a movement, as a feminist movement, we should use it more. And we also, again, back to our experience, we are now in Ukraine, we are advocating for the establishment of the Day of Women's Movement. We have the date even for 8, and this is a very historic, symbolic date. So we, several women's organizations, started a petition to the president to establish this date. But according to the legislation, we have to collect 25,000 signatures for this petition, so that the president could look at it and, it could go further. It is difficult to collect 25,000 signatures. So what we are doing now is that we are approaching young people who are active in networks, who are really very much engaged in digital activism.
Natalia disappeared, probably.
I think we lost Natalia, yes.
Yes, probably she has a problem with internet or energy.
Yeah, let me just say something about the involvement of young people in the Netherlands. Yes, we are constantly on the lookout for organizations that particularly engage young people, because that's something that I still find a gap in our NAP 3025 implementation, because young people are often individually indeed very much engaged, but we can only get organizations to sign up. So there's a bit of a discrepancy there. We have tried on several occasions to get universities on board, universities to sign up to the NAP as well. But for some reason, universities always are a bit worried that they lose their independence, that they are tying themselves to a certain agenda, and that they lose their whatever scientific or whatever independence. So that's been a difficult path. We have a few youth organizations who are member, and Women Equals Men as an organization. There you can sign up as an individual to become a member of Women Equals Men. And we see in the current situation that a lot of young people are signing up to our organization. And so indirectly, they are then invited to exchange sessions, thematic sessions or whatever, to learn at least about women, peace and security and implementation of the NAP. But it is a challenge for us to find organizations of young people who are, who are signing up, because, as I said, we see in the Netherlands a lot of young people individually are very active, but an organization, of course, and I understand that it's another bureaucracy, it's another system, and you may not necessarily want that, but definitely something that we are actively pursuing, because we certainly in the current context, it's so important to get young people engaged on this topic.
Yes, I'm really happy that especially now we can see that among our participants, there are representatives from academia as well. So they are part of civil society and academia. This is State University, Doamna Tatiana Busuncian, or the dean of the international relations from Free University, from
Nice.
Moldova, Rodica Panța as well, and we have some volunteers from this university as well. So I'm really happy that we raised this question regarding the involvement of young people, girls and boys, and they have this awareness about the importance of the VPS. As we promised not to have the duration of our meeting no more than 1 hour, I have a very short question from my side, or if you have somebody would like to address another question, please raise your hand and address yourselves. I have a very specific question to Karen regarding these signatories. You are 67 signatories, and I'm very interested on the duties or obligation of these signatories. So they sign for this NAP, and so they have an obligation to contribute. And as I understood from your side, these signatories are responsible for finding this co-sponsorship. And here, for me, very important question, because we're coordinating this civil society platform of CISOs, how to coordinate and understand for what projects, what organization is applying, if they are not doing the same activities from the NAP. And as well, you mentioned that you succeeded to organize that every organization share all the materials, and you stock these materials where on your website. See this from my side. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, I could answer that. If you sign up to the NAP, your organization's name and logo will appear on the website. We will place it there. So, and under that logo, you are supposed to fill in a sort of what we call it a pledge form. So you basically pledge and say, well, I'm becoming a signatory to the NAP. I will work on outcome 2 or on outcome 3, and I will do it this way, that way, that way. So you explain, as it were, in a sort of written pledge what you will do. So we don't know it all. We don't have it in a collective overview, but we can, for every organization, always go back to the website, click on their logo, and then you can see the information behind that logo. So that's how we have, so everybody can see what somebody else has pledged. And then the other thing is, for the products, yes, we place it on the database on the website, and that database you can then scroll through. You can click, I want to see all the products that have been provided on Colombia, or all the products that have been provided on the prevention of conflict, outcome 2. Or maybe you want to know what has organization X provided, and you can click on the organization. So if you go to the website of the NAP, and I think you may have the links, but otherwise I can certainly share it. You can find all that information by country or organization or by theme. And that way we try to sort of categorize it a little bit so that it is not like one bunch of information. It's like it's a little bit organized and you can find it back. Having said that, I mean, of course, this is the intention. Not every organization provides always products. I mean, and I have no means to force them, however much often I call or I say that I want information. Other organizations are better at it. And I must say, as Women Equals Men, often when we see something from one of our signatories, we approach them and say, do you mind if we put it on the website? So it's not that it is a spontaneous, constant flow of products coming in. It really requires from our side as coordinators to follow it up and make sure it gets on the database. So there is work to be done to get that sorted. It's not coming in. As I said, we have no carrots and sticks. We're not paying them for anything. We are not. Yeah. So that is a challenge. On the other hand, if we would have asked for reports to be written for us, we would have received nothing. So I know that for sure. So this is much better. And we do have a few hundred products at the moment. So it is getting a valuable collection.
Thank you. It's very inspiring for us, and once again highlighting the role of the coordinator. So how organized we'll be, how doing a lot of volunteering work, but there is a need for coordination and organizations among us. Do you have the last questions from Anna? Anna, you raised the hand.
Natalia also said she's trying to get back on. I don't know if you can admit her again, but she was trying without video to join again.
Natalia?
Yes, she is.
I'm here, colleagues. Yes, the connection is really bad. This is because there's
okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, do you have a question?
Yes, a very short question. Actually, Natalia answered to this, but I'll try one more time. Maybe there are some additional answers, because Natalia mentioned about the political will when we speak about implementing the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And my question is if you can add maybe some additional suggestions how we can increase this political will, because I'll explain why I'm questioning this. Since the war started in Ukraine, some of political leaders or ministries from different institutions are excusing themselves that in times of war, there is no time to discuss about gender equality, to discuss about women, peace and security. But we see, and as Natalia told again, women, peace and security is everything around us. So maybe you can have some additional suggestions for our country, because sometimes it's quite difficult to involve political leaders or decision makers in discussions related to women, peace and security agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for the question. I'll try to get video again. Hope it will work. So, well, very important question. And I think there is no one, everything is not black and white, right? There is no one clear answer to this. Well, what's our recipe in Ukraine, what we are doing to get political support and this political will is that we are looking for arguments. We are not differentiating like these are women's problems or gender equality related problems and there are the others. We are trying to find the ways how to show to decision makers that everything is connected, and by supporting women in the army we will make army stronger. By supporting women in communities we will make communities stronger. By giving women power we will basically solve a lot of problems that might be invisible for men. So we are trying to look for such arguments, and in this work, gender analytical centers are a big support, because these are the analytical institutions that are helping us to get data and analysis and statistics. And what also helps, in my opinion, communication campaigns. We politicians are using them a lot, right? We as civil society, as movements, I believe we should be better in communications. Not only within our bubbles, but also to different constituencies beyond our bubbles. That would be probably my advice. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Moldova, and also for us as well, for Ukraine, because we also hear this a lot that war is the top priority and we will come to gender equality later. We always say, no, it will be too late later, because everything is interconnected.
Yeah, thank you very much.
On this optimistic note, do we have any other comments, questions? It could be a comment, conclusion, an idea. If not, we're really happy that we had the possibility to bring these distinguished guests, speakers, for this 1 hour discussion. But I think this is 1 hour of very useful inputs for us and ideas for reflections, ideas and inspirations to follow on coordination, on organization, on localization, on promotion and communication. I'm really happy that today we had some colleagues from civil society, from academia, from international non-governmental organization based with projects in Moldova. This was a great idea to record these presentations, and we will share this presentation with governmental institutions responsible for NEP and especially for Secretariat to bring them international experience and examples how to organize the things. From our side as civil society, we strongly believe that we need to continue to build our capacity, to organize ourselves, to stay united, to contribute. And for us, the next objective for Moldova will be to go more in the regions to discuss. And I really I liked this example from Ukraine on to try to identify the security risks for women, to make them understand why VPS agenda is their agenda as well, because we always have this kind of stereotype, so there is a war near us. We don't have time for feminist things and issues, or again, you with your women and women problem. So thank you very much once again, Karin, Natalia, and Elena, once again for organizing it. And really hope that this is only the start of our cooperation, and we'll have joint activities, and we will need more inspiration from your side, and if it's possible to share your knowledge, how you did in your countries. Thank you very much for your time, for your expertise, and your willingness to share your experience. Thank you very much.